All right, I'm so excited today to be talking about what's left unsaid and how you can communicate for better relationships. I have so many thoughts to share around how this affects both your personal and your professional relationships. First of all, for those of you who are watching the video, where in the world is Julie today? Which I feel like every single time that I record a new episode, I'm in a different location. So we have all these different things going on with our house, different projects that we're doing, some planned, some unplanned, life, right? Just life. I'll leave it at that. If you've been following along, if you follow me on social media, I've shared a little bit about. But right now, we're currently at my in-laws' house, staying with them while we get some things going on and fixed in the house. So it's just like a fun adventure. Like, where in the world is Julie today? Eventually will find my way back to my home office that I am so desperately missing. Little sidebar, but so today I want to talk about what's left unsaid, and this actually just popped into my head when I was thinking about what do I want to talk about for the podcast today. And there's multiple different reasons. First of all, I see this so much from a personal relationship standpoint and a professional relationship standpoint. And so hopefully for those of you listening, you can really see the connection for both of these for you, because when we get better at communicating these things, not only communicating ourselves, but and then actively listening, but addressing things that are left unsaid, we can see so much ripple effect and benefit in across wherever, again, personal or professional relationships. And so from the professional side, first of all, one of the things that I see a lot working with organizations, whether I'm working with teams, they're bringing me in to do some team dynamics work, or I'm working with emerging leader programs and we're talking about how they can grow and develop in their career and their leadership, or I'm doing one-on-one coaching with an executive and we're working things around like communication or giving coaching and feedback to their team, or some relationships that they're struggling with within the organization. And then also, when just, again, personal, just like people that I talk to or in my own relationships, but from the professional side, in all of those situations, I see one of the big issues comes in is when things are left unsaid. And this is from multiple different things. And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say that you are someone who works for someone else, you work in a company, or you have other team members, and somebody's not meeting expectations. There's something that somebody's not doing, whether it's your manager or it's your team member or it's a peer of yours that you're working on something with. They're not meeting expectations, but you keep beating around the bush, or you keep complaining to other people about it, but not actually addressing it with them. Right? And so you have this like frustration just boiling in you, and for whatever reason, you're not addressing it. You don't want to make them feel bad. You're hoping that it's going to go away. You feel like you've already addressed it with them, but really you've like tiptoed around it. What happens is we think that we are better off. We're serving them and ourselves better by not having to have that uncomfortable conversation to give them feedback or to talk about the thing that's bothering us. But what's really happening, my friend, is that you are letting all of this stuff stay below the surface and just keep, like, every single time they do this thing, it frustrates you, or every time they do something that isn't meeting expectations to where you want it to be, it just keeps fueling the fire until eventually, and I say like we kind of like keep shoving it down, we keep shoving down the frustration, it's fine, it's okay, until eventually it's going to start boiling out. It's gonna like flow out of you, and usually not in the way we want. Usually that is like you are losing your cool and you're getting over frustrated and your patience with them, right? And then you don't act in the way that you want to act, or you might get emotional, or again, you might just keep ignoring it, and because you're ignoring it, something else happens, an unintended consequence. And so the first thing that we need to address, and again, this can happen in our personal relationships too, right? Your significant other is doing something that just drives you crazy, or you have a friend or a family member who keeps saying things or doing things that's frustrating you, and you just keep letting it bother you instead of actually addressing it. You just keep letting it go unsaid until you get to the point where you lose your cool, and then they're like, whoa, where did that just come from? because you never actually told them that it was bothering you. And that's on you, right? If somebody's, it's like a trigger thing too. If somebody's triggering something in you, that's on you to own that and to communicate that to them. Or if they're not meeting expectations, if there's unmet expectations in that relationship, if there's unmet expectations of each other and you haven't communicated those, or maybe those expectations have changed, the dynamic of your relationship has changed, and you haven't talked about those new expectations, then how can we hold somebody accountable to something that we haven't communicated? And I see this all the time when I'm coaching. Let's just say I'm coaching an individual and they're telling me, they're so frustrated about this certain situation. And I go, well, what have you done so far to address it? Well, I kind of did this, kind of this. It's like, okay, how direct have you been in your communication? Not very direct. That's usually what I hear. Right? And so the first thing you need to do is just acknowledge like your part and your ownership of this, because this is where we see communication really start to fail, is when we leave things unsaid, when we have this set of expectations that other people aren't meeting, but we also have not communicated that. And I'll be the first one to say I have high expectations. I always have of myself, but that also means I have really high expectations of other people. So I often could find myself feeling like people weren't meeting expectations. But you also have to do a little bit of a check for yourself and say, how clear have I been in those expectations? And also to acknowledge that within that expectations is free will, in the sense of people aren't going to do it exactly the way that you would do it. And so you kind of have to level set. Is it that they're not meeting expectations? Or is that you're expecting something of them that they can't do because they're not you? Ooh, right? Like even as I say that, it's like, oh, this difference between, it's okay to have high standards and high expectations, but we can't expect someone else to be us. And so they're going to do something different, right? So I challenge you to think about, first of all, what maybe relationships you have right now, personal or professional, or what situation you have right now where you have just this, like, you're harboring so much frustration about it, or there's just something that's not going the way you want, and what maybe have you left unsaid? What have you not communicated in terms of either the way that they are coming to you that's bothering you, or they're not coming to you, or the way that they're not meeting expectations on this project, or in this thing, this conversation, this expectation. So what have you maybe left unsaid? What expectations do you have for yourself, for them, for the situation, for what you want the outcome to be? And how clearly have you communicated those expectations? Maybe you're not even clear on the expectations for yourself. And so how the heck can we expect them to be clear? So what have you left unsaid? What relationship or situation right now are you going, ooh, you know what? I probably have not really communicated my thoughts or feelings on that. Maybe I really haven't communicated what my expectations are from them. Because here's the thing, is so often then we want to jump right into, especially if it's a professional relationship, we want to jump right into like, well, now I need to, either if you lead someone, I have to put them on a performance plan, or I have to escalate this. And it's like, first we need to level set on how clear have you been on those expectations? And then, and this is something that I teach when I'm working with people in regards to giving feedback, like giving and receiving feedback, this sort of continuum, like building blocks of, we have to start here, and we really have to understand what you've already done, what you've already said, what's already happened, to figure out like, how much do we need to escalate this? Have you already had this conversation really clearly with them around what you expect, what the accountability looks like, what next steps are? Have you had a follow-up conversation with them? Have you offered support for them and asked them, what they could be doing to meet those expectations? Then like but it doesn't have to jump. I would say it doesn't have to jump from like, okay, I've never given this feedback before, to, oh my gosh, now, we got to go like so extreme over here, and we need to escalate this, right? So there's this continuum. So I really want you to think about, what am I not actually communicating? And it sounds so simple, but so many times when I talk to someone, I say, well, have you talked to them about that? What does that conversation look like? What were next steps? How did you leave it? Why do you think they might be doing that? Like, that's the other thing, is if you can get to, Why? Maybe they don't know that that was the expectation. Maybe they don't know that that was bothering you. Maybe they don't realize, fill in the blank. But we leave these things unsaid because we don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation, or we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, or even worse, they should just know, right? Like, how many times have you said, they should just know that that bothers me. They should just know that that's the expectation. How are they supposed to know? Once you communicate it, then we could say, how did you not know? We talked about that. But it's so often these things that are not said. You want more responsibility. You want more projects, and you don't say it. Maybe you run a business and there's someone on your team that you feel like they're not meeting expectations, but you're doing yourself and them a disservice by not addressing it, by not talking about it. Maybe it's, again, professionally, maybe you're wanting that next level position. You're wanting more responsibility, and you're like, why isn't it coming to me? Have you communicated that? How clearly have you communicated? How clearly have you come with, this is where I want to be. What is it going to take for me to get there? So that's what I want to share with you today. And this is something that I'm always working on. We're working on it in our marriage as well, in terms of personal relationships, of what expectations do we have as we grow. I mean, one of the things for us, we've been together since we were 16 years old. And so that's high school, through college, through jobs, through job changes, through house, through getting married, through having a kid, through running businesses. You evolve as a person, and your expectations of yourself and of each other change. And that's something that we're having a lot of conversations around, is the expectations that we have of each other and our roles in just as parents and as spouse, and taking care of the house and who does what. Like, those things evolve and change as you change. And so you need to come back and revisit those and have open communication. And it's the same thing, again, if you are in a personal or a professional relationship. Maybe you've been going about things, but you've changed, or the dynamic has changed, or the expectations have changed, but nobody's talked about it. Okay, so what can you do about it? Well, first of all, you need to have this level of awareness. You need to go, what relationship, what situation, maybe have I left things unsaid? What expectations have I had that I haven't communicated? Why do I feel like that is triggering me or bothering me? Like, what is the root of that? And then the first step is to have the conversation. You need to be clear first before you go in with them. You need to be clear on all of those things I just talked about, so that you can then talk to them and say, hey, I really wanted to just have an open, honest, transparent conversation with you around fill in the blank. And I always say, when it comes to feedback, we want to go in, first of all, like with this coaching approach, open and curious, versus telling and judging and frustration, right? So as open and curious as you can go in, say, I really want to talk to you, really open and honest around this. How do you feel like this is going? How do you feel like this project is going? Or how do you feel like the situation is going? Where do you feel like you're struggling with that? Where could where could we work together for that? So really get them talking first to see where they're at, because that can kind of help guide your conversation. And then from there, you guys can co-create what you want. I've noticed that one of the things that I've been feeling is, I've noticed that, we sometimes can struggle with communicating this. So you gave them a chance to talk. You are both talking. And now, okay, now where do we want to go from here? What are next steps? So what do we need to do so that we can talk about these things? Now that it's out in the open, now you both have this accountability and this clarity on both sides, because most likely you are not the only one that's feeling this. They might be feeling some things as well, but they don't know how to communicate it. But you do now, right? Because you are listening to this and you're getting better at communicating those things. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. I know it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, again, not only from the clients I work with, but also how can I do a better and better job of continuing to work on this, and stop leaving so many things left unsaid and start addressing them, and see how your relationships really change.